I've seen a lot of posts recently telling the good, the bad, and the ugly about DXM, as in Robitussin, yum yum. I'm no expert at drugs, I will attest. I rarely drink, and have smoked MJ even more infrequently, like, 5 times total in my life. I have been around people who have done drugs. Usually I was the designated straightedge. I enjoyed the job, but now have began to fiddle around a little bit. Oh, the joys of college life, smiley face. Anyhow, I have been messing around with DXM recently, and thought I'd share my personal experiences with it. First time. Drank a 4 ounces bottle of Robitussin DXM. Loved it, since my roomie is deathly afraid of the stuff. He used to do it, and now can't even get near a bottle of the stuff without heaving. Drank the whole 4 oz in front of him in about 2 minutes, and made sure to breathe the fumes on him, smiley face. Not a whole lot of effect, but I did not really expect much. Some dizziness, a little bit of audio hallucinations, music was a whole lot more interesting. I was more talkative, but always felt like I was slurring my speech, even though, according to my friends, I was not. Time seemed to move really slow. The high lasted about 4 hours, even though it felt longer. Felt tired, worn out afterwards and slept rather well. Second time. Drank another 4 ounces of Rob DM. Licked my lips as my roomie gagged at the sight of me drinking it. Unlike others, I do not mind the taste of Robitussin too awful much, although I do have to drink plenty to get the lingering taste out of my mouth. Much the same effects as before, but even more pronounced. No real visual hallucinations at all. Lasted a bit longer this time, maybe 5 hours. Loads of fun walking around. Next to impossible to urinate, though smiley face. Third time. Decided to be cheap, and bought a bottle of generic high-V brand, Tussin. Ingredient label was exactly the same as Robitussin DM, I made sure to check. Got back. Drank it all in 3 mighty gulps. Taste was awful. I could feel my guts beginning to churn. I sat back, waiting a bit for the effects to take hold. Usually takes about 45 minutes when I drink a whole bottle at one time. A friend came in and told me they were dragging someone up on the memorial arch at school. A big 50-foot monument to something, so I rushed out there. I helped drag him up by pulling a rope that was slung over the top, and had to do a lot of strenuous pulling. I got violently sick, and threw up in the snow by the arch. After about an hour and a half outside, I still felt no effect. Went back in and went to sleep. Absolutely no effects. Felt cheated. Fourth time. Another 4 ounces Robitussin. Even more effects than before. Began to get into the, oh wow, type syndrome. Everything became INFINATELY more interesting. I'd tend to stare off into space without blinking for moments at a time. Began having minor hallucinations too. Posters and things on the wall would seem to jump and change places just a little bit. Slight visuals too, like a flashing off color light field in front of my eyes for moments at a time. Lasted even longer, about 6 hours, and time felt really, really distorted. I awoke the next morning full of energy too. Fifth time. Big time. Decided to go all out, and bought the 8 ounces family-size Robitussin DM. Drank it all within 10 minutes, to the absolute disgust of everyone in the room. Kind of a mistake, but not really. It began like normal, dizziness, then audio hallucinations, then slight visuals. But it continued on. I began to have more massive visuals. Big colored blobs flowing and oozing in front of my eyes. Staring at any one spot for a while caused that spot to seem to fly away, almost like I was shrinking. My friends left me alone for a while, and I sat in the room in the dark. More hallucinations, including one full-blown, I do not exist, anymore, type hallucination. I thought I was a flower. I could feel myself swaying the wind, I could see a big field of grass instead of my normal surroundings. This went away rather quickly, and has been the only real, full-out hallucination I have had yet. I was full of energy, too. I was hyper. I was bouncing off the walls in our hallway, running around, talkative. When I finally sat down, about 6 hours later, I was still buzzing. I began to get tired, and started sort of passing out. During that time, I began convulsing. I'd all of a sudden get sort of a seizure, and flail around in the chair I was sitting in. That lasted about 45 minutes, until I fell fully asleep. Awoke nice and refreshed the next day. Sixth time. I was kind of hesitant to do any more after the last experience, but I eventually downed another 4 oz of Rob DM. Not a whole lot, just a normal 4 ounces trip. I might have been holding myself back because of the experience I had with the 8 ozer. 7th time. Another 8 ounces family robbed DM. Great time. I had all the effects I had before on the 8 ounces, but no adverse side effects. I was loaded with energy. The trip lasted at least 10 hours, and I was buzzing the whole time. Finally fell asleep, and woke up the next morning feeling good, but a little bit messed up still. This was probably the longest trip I have ever had on Robitussin yet. 8th, and most recent, time. Decided to make a change, and picked up the maximum strength Robitussin 4 ounces. Drank it all in the normal 3 big gulps. Wow. I wasn't filled with as much energy as before. I couldn't bounce around as much and stuff. But the buzz, and the visuals, and everything was just the same as drinking 8 ounces. I had some wild visual hallucinations. For a while, it felt like I was walking around only in 2 dimensions. Everything had length and height, but no width. Wild. The next day I was violently ill, though. I think this had more to do, though, with the fact that I was coming down with a cold all weekend, and not the Robitussin. Will I do it again? Probably. I have heard a lot about the similarity between DM trips and LSD and shroom trips. I would consider trying them, LSD, shrooms. But they are near to impossible to come by in ass backwards, where I am attending college. So you can bet I might be making a few more trips to the local supermarket for that. Ahem. Bad cold I got. I don't really condone the stuff. It may sound great, but there are plenty of bad effects. If you have a weak stomach, or can't handle the smell of Robitussin, then for God's sakes don't. You'll puke. Only reason I can handle the stuff is because I kind of like the taste. Strange, I know, but I still complain to my roomie that it tastes better than the Milwaukee's Best light beer he loves to drink. If you are depressed, or have an aversion to drugs, then for Christ's sakes, don't. If you have to drive, or work, or anything strenuous, then for Satan's sake, don't. I had to drive a few friends to the bar about 20 minutes after drinking a bottle, and I will never do that again. I had my roomie, who had not been drinking, thank God, take over for me.